Welcome back to Wargaming World, to Normandy, June 6, 1944, and a new game of nuts. Right, well, before I start the game itself, I just want to say thanks very much to the guys at Little Wars TV. They've had a review of nuts, and it's a really good review. And in that review itself, there's quite a lot of coverage of a video I put together of how to play nuts. Very complimentary, and if you want to have a look at that, I'll put a note in the description, and you can have a look at what that looks like and how to play. But this is to have a look at the landing of the British Airborne about 3 o'clock in the morning of June 6th. Now, I mentioned at the start that there was a review of nuts. This is nuts version 4, and there are various options that you can play in addition to this, but I'm going to take the rules directly from these two books, so nuts version 4 and the compendium. And now, a couple of things to say is that naturally early in the morning on June 6th it was all dark, so we're going to have to factor in some of the aspects of the fact that it's at the dead of night. In addition, I'm going to do and pinch some of the rules that we've got in the compendium about the challenges of troops as they land. Okay, so I'll point out where they are in the compendium themselves. Now, we've looked at the grid. You'll see the grid on screen now, and the problem we've got here is that the British, and I'm going to go through this small section to show how they are comprised, is that they've landed and they're quite a way off their original target. What they're going to try and do, as we look down this road, is that they realise, as they've worked out through their maps, is that they need to get off the table towards this end, going towards this particular village. Problem that they've got is that this section is on its own, and all the way around it are potential enemy forces or potential friendly forces. We don't know. We're going to have to roll for them as we go. And just to add an extra element of complication, I'm going to throw in that we might potentially have no enemy at all, but some French who have arrived just to celebrate their liberation. Problem we've got is that if we don't know who they are, and we don't know whether they're enemy or friends, we don't know how to act and whether to fire. So let's see how we go on with the confusion and uncertainty of D-Day. So let's start with the landing British section. So we've got the paratroopers here, and we're going to take a roll. We get 7 plus 1d6. Then we're going to work out about the characters, the rep, etc., and the quality of them. 7 plus 1d6. Right, we've got 11 in total. So we've got 11 men. I'm going to say 1 is the star, so we'll work that out in a second. I'm going to say we're going to have 2 junior NCOs. That takes us down to 8. I'm going to have a light machine gun, Bren, and 1 supporter in that, 1 carrier, so that takes us to 6 rifles and a standard 6 rifle team. So I'm going to roll into different units, but if you take a look there, so you've got the British Airborne, 1 or 2, the rep's 4, 3 to 5, rep is 5, 6, the rep is 6. First of all, the rifle team. The 5 there, so it's a rep of 5. The Bren team. A 2, so it's the Bren team, a rep of 4. I'm going to roll for both junior leaders. And again, it's a rep of 5 for each. So there we go, we've got our Bren team out here, and you can see the difference. I've put a helmet, or the figures for the helmet there. We've got the Bren team and his support, a rep of 4, all with the beret there, rep of 5, all rifles. We've got 2 junior leaders, similarly on 5, but with a submachine gun, and then as the character, main character is myself, here, character with 5. So as the star, let's see too whether what kind of star traits the character has. Have up to 3, and so we've got 2 traits, 1 and 4. So that means it's star power and free will. Well, we'll see if these special traits have any advantage during the game. Now, I spotted in the compendium airborne landings and the possibility of troops being scattered as they land. So I think I'm going to go through this and roll, and I'll talk through what the results are. Now, I'm going to take a test for all 4 units. So what we're looking to do here is to take a test against the rep. So I need to equal or less than the rep. If we get a 2, if we pass with 2, they're going to land in the centre here, where we want them to go. Otherwise, they may be scattered more widely, and you'll see why that becomes an issue when we look to see the fact that actually at night it's going to be a difficulty of getting them together. So let's start with the Bren team. 4s or less. Only 1. We'll do the impact of that in a second. So let's do the unit of 6 riflemen. And that's 2 juniors, junior leaders. That's 2, and star character, main leader, only 1. Right. Although I'm slightly deviating from the rules, I'm going to include that the leader hasn't landed where he should be. It means for the Bren team and the leader, they're going to drop 2d6 away from the centre, and I need to roll 2d6 to see in which direction. So let's start with the character, my character, and that's a 10. So lands 2d6 to the left of where we wanted. 2d6 is 8 inches. Bren team, 4. That's right, the other side. Question is how far? 5 inches. And so as a result, that's where we are. Not a disaster, but the leader is over there on the left hand side. But what we need to test also is whether if anybody has landed awkwardly. Now for our 6 riflemen, they've landed, they've what should be landed okay, but we need to roll and have a look on this test to see if anybody has any particular problems. In particular, if any of them roll 2 6s, then there might be a significant consequence. Right, so I've got 6 pairs of dice here. Let's take a look. Right, with that, 2 men are stunned as they landed. They landed awkwardly. So these 2 men are going to have to recover. It takes them 1 turn. Let's test those junior NCOs also. Both are fine. Now for my star character and for the Bren team, you'll notice at the bottom there it says landing table -1 to rep. So this time I have to have a test and have to see whether that Bren team are okay. Bren team's rep effectively is 3, so he's gone down by 1. And that's a problem. Both of them are stunned. Finally, my star character, stunned also. Right, so that's where we start. So the section has landed. Not a disaster in terms of where they are. They're more or less in the centre. Awkward landing, so therefore they're going to have to take a little bit of time to dust themselves down. So the next thing to work out is where will the potential enemy, friendly, or indeed French characters appear amongst the grid. Now, just to be clear, is that the 1, 2, 3 is going to be to the left hand side of the troops as they've landed, and the 4, 5, 6 is going to be in this direction. We're not going to have any of either the Germans or the other British joining in the middle. So the actual the grid, the sort of safe grid, is in the centre. And so the potential German forces are going to be split. Actually, it's going to be 1, 2 and 6. Potential British forces, 1, 2 in 6. Our French marker is in 2. So let me talk you through. In 1 we have a British and a German marker. So they're potential forces as they move. They're not within 12 inches of any troops here. So we'll just move them as if they're potential enemy forces. We'll roll them there. Now all forces on either side of the British will be moving towards the centre. Okay, so that's their direction of travel. Second roll we had was a 2, and we had that for the German marker and for the French marker. We'll have to see which way that they move, because, for example, the Germans are within 12 inches of this character here. So I'm going to say if they move, if it becomes active, they're going to get sight, and we'll see what happens. So we'll have to work out whether that's going to be the German, the French, or indeed if it's friendly forces. But at the moment that looks tricky. On the other side we have 2 British markers and 1 German marker. Again, we can't guarantee that that's who they are, but because they're not within 12 inches of these forces, they can't be seen. So we'll see where they move, and once they're activated, what they are. So might be a little bit complicated at the moment, but once the game starts we'll get very clear on what's happening. Now, just a note, I'm going to say that all the reps, including the French, has a rep of 4. So this roll is for all PEFs, so the black dice is for that, British, German and French. So who can be activated? Both forces. Now, remembering that anybody who's lying down here has to just recover from an awkward landing. The only men who can move is the rifle section there, and those 2 juniors. One of the junior officers can see, or the NCOs I should say, really corporals, can see that the main character here has fallen, the leader has fallen, so they're going to move. We can move up to 6 inches, move into this direction and secure them. I'm going to say that the NCO at the back is going to take 2 of the rifles over to the Bren team to make sure that they're okay. So we've got an equal split of an NCO and 2 men, one going towards the leader, the others to the Bren team. Right, kept some cohesion. So now we need to test the potential enemy forces. Now let's start over here. So I'll talk you through how this works. And so what we need to do is we need to roll and see whether these troops will move towards the enemy forces. So red dice for the Germans, blue for the French, to see if they can be activated against their rep. And in both cases we have 1 rep. Now with 1 passed, both of those PEFs will move 4 inches towards the British troops. So they'll move beyond that tree towards the troops here. Now, what is the consequence? Now, potential line of sight is made. They're very close. So let's see what the outcome of this is. Now you need to take note that we've got 2 for what is the German PEF and 0 for the French. Now with the 0, it's a false alarm. It means there's nobody there. On the other hand, with a 2, and this is for the German figure, we've made contact. Now, if you remember, I now need to roll to see the fact that we've made contact is it German troops? So if I roll a 1, 2, 3, 4, it is German. 5 British. 6, it's actually a Frenchman. 2, no, it's certainly German. And finally, we've made contact, so I need to see which table we look at, whether it's an enemy defensive position or whether it's enemy forces. and it's enemy forces. So it's effectively a patrol. German forces have been in the area. It's going to be a -1 to this roll, but we're going to say what exactly it is that has arrived. -1 to this roll, it's going to be 6. A 6 means that we've got a German infantry squad with an anti-tank weapon. Alright, so we've got 5 men plus 1d6, then we'll roll for the rep. 5 men plus 2, so we've got 7 men in total. And so what's happened is that as the British have landed, a German unit very close by has looked to investigate what's taking place, and suddenly we've got, well, all hell breaking loose. Right, we need to roll for some the rep. So we need the rep of the German NCO first of all. So that's a 2. He's got a rep of 4. So I'm going to roll then for a rifle team and a light machine gun team. So the rifles, that's a 1. So a rep of 3. The machine gun team, that's a better team. So a team of 5. So straight away we've got some action, and we're going to have to see how this unit of 3, so this is the one where their focus was coming on in this direction, how they can deal with that unit, and vice versa with the Germans. Now I'm going to come back to that in 2 seconds, but I'm just going to roll for the unit up there. I'm just going to see if there's any activity there. This time it was British and German potential forces, so nothing for the British. The British don't move. The Germans go 8 inches towards the activity. Now in doing that, they're also within 12 inches of the British, so therefore I'm going to see whether there's potential enemy forces here also. 4 and a 2. And so yes, there is some potential forces, but are they German? No, they aren't. In actual fact, the contact that we've made is actually local Frenchmen. An element of chaos ensues as locals appear through the woods, celebrating the fact that the British had landed, not realising that they're just about to walk straight into live action. I'll just see whether these troops are going to be activated. I'll say that the black dice are the potential enemy forces for the Germans. In that case there was 2 British and the Germans. So no activity for the German figure, but there is activity for what potentially looks like the British. They will move, however it won't be near enough to get within 12 inches of the action taking place. So they'll walk in this direction. We think they might be British, but we don't know. We also need to see what happens over here, and that's where they've got to. So we need to see who has the initiative to act first in this situation now for the fighting. I'll just add that I also added the anti-tank team there right at the back with the Panzerschreck. So how we do this is that we roll 5 dice for the British unit, 4 for the Germans because it's led by those junior leaders, and we need a 1, 2 and 3. One who gets most of them has the first initiative to fire. British is the green dice. Now I've come up with the same, so I'm going to roll again. Right, second time round. And therefore it's the Germans who fire first. Now because the British are sort of separated, if you like, the submachine gun that the NCO has is still only going to hit 1 man. So therefore we've effectively got 5 firing, so we've got 4 rifles and a submachine gun, and I'm going to say that they're going to fire at 2 at the front man, which is the junior leader, 2 at the middle and 1 at the end. Just going to mention that I'm going to use this table in terms of rolling to hit. Again, it's straight from this book. There are other options in doing this from later releases after this suggested options way to hit, but I'm going to use this one here just so you're aware of that. Now I'll roll in terms of the impact it's making on each man. So I'm going to say that the front two, the riflemen there, are firing at the nearest man, which is the junior officer. Okay, so we've got a 7 and a 4. Right, all that's going to do is to prompt the corporal to fire back with a submachine gun. So 2 rifles firing at the man in the middle. What have we got there? We've got a 10 and an 11. Both of them are hits. Finally, we've got the NCO firing at the man at the end there. It's an 8. That's also a hit. So now we move to the results. So we had, remember, we've got the 2 men hit. Everything other than the junior is going to fire back, or I keep saying junior officer, he's actually just a corporal. Anyway, 6, obviously it's a kill, and the rep is 5 of the men. So they're going to be out the fight if we just get a 5. If we get a 4, they'll duck back. We had 2 hits for the man in the middle, and he's killed. 1 hit, the man at the end, and he just ducks back. So he ducks back effectively in the cover of night. Middleman is killed. I'll just remove him actually from the table, and this man at the front, he will fire. He will have to make a reaction for the casualty, but he is going to fire. Now when this man goes down, we need to do a man down test. So I need to roll against the rep of this corporal. Let's see if he continues as normal. Just need to avoid 6s. That's absolutely fine. Now this submachine gun can hit 2 men, so we're going to roll for both. And we've got a 7 and a 5. Now the 2 riflemen there have been outgunned. So although they aren't killed, rather than reply by firing back, in actual fact, because the corporal has a submachine gun, he outguns the rifles, and so as a consequence those 2 men will fall back behind the tree, and that will end the turn. So at the end of the turn, what we can see is that the British have advanced slightly in terms of going towards the star, as it were. He's actually, he's not injured, he's just taking some time to get up. We've now got some German forces. Now they're going to be operated moving forward as the non-player, so we'll have to roll for reactions there. And I will comment that there is lots of rolling in terms of nuts, but we have to remember that the design of the game really is at section level, so you know, it really is very close to role-playing effectively of games that way. That's why it goes into a lot of detail about various different aspects in terms of a skirmish war game. So let's go and have a look and see what happens in turn 2. Now it's the start of turn 2, and I want to just talk through briefly about how we roll to see what activity takes place next and who gets priorities, as well as any potential reinforcements. Right, so at the start of any turn I've got 2 dice that I roll. The black Wargaming World dice is the non-player, green dice is the British in this case, my forces that are the active force. So we roll against the rep. So if you remember, the rep of the non-player is 4, and the rep for the British with the senior officer is 5. Now when I roll, if I get a 6 for the British, it means they can't be activated in this turn. 5 and 6, the non-player can't be activated. If then, for example, I rolled a 1 with the black dice and a 2 with the green dice, it means both could be activated, but the British would go first because I rolled 2. Let's just roll this just as an example. So, as I just mentioned, so we've got a 5 and a 4, both could be activated, and the British goes first, so therefore that would be the progress. However, Had I rolled a 5 and a 2, we'd have got a 7. And with a 7, it means that the British could potentially receive further reinforcements. Alternatively, if I'd have rolled 2 2s, it means that the non-player could have received reinforcements. Now, normally, I'm not playing a game where the non-player is both British, German, and indeed French in this case. So, if we'd have got potential reinforcements, I would have had to, and indeed will, moving forward in subsequent turns, to see which type of reinforcements come in. However, that's the option. So, just to summarise, I've shown who is activated and why, and how reinforcements might potentially appear for the player, the British player in this case, if it's a 7, or if it's the non-player, how by rolling a double then we can potentially get reinforcements. I would add that there is a slight complication on the non-player. If we roll a double, and in this case if it was going to be a double 4, double 5 or double 6, that wouldn't happen, but it would do if it was a 1, 2 and 3, due to what's called the investment phase. But rather than go into that, we'll just take that as read, and we'll see if moving forward that takes place. So I'm going to re-roll and see how we go for turn 2. Thanks for your patience with that. So turn 2. Oh, and we get a double 6. So in that case, neither could be activated. Nobody gets a any reinforcements, for the reason why I said about the investment level. So I would go straight to turn 3, but I'll roll again. Okay, new turn. So we get a 1 and a 4. Both forces can be activated, the British going first. And so the British are going to go first of all and act. So what that means is the guys who are lying down there will stand up. It's now the next turn. And the units at the back here, so the majority of them will move 6 inches, as much as they can move. I'm not going to say they can charge. They're going to move to where they think the fighting is, and at some point we're going to have some sight as they advance. But these two in the front are going to act immediately. One will fire, and right at the front there, my character as he stands up, will throw a grenade. Now I'm going to say that the character will throw a grenade 6 inches. I didn't want it too close to himself, and doesn't actually know how many Germans there are. So 6 inches lands on this character there. So let's see how we do it. Roll 2d6 against a rep of 5, and that's 2. Now, I'm not absolutely sure what the blast radius is of the grenade. It might be 2 or 3 inches, but I'm going to say that it's not close enough to affect this character or the 2 at the back there. But I am going to say it affects everybody else. So we just roll against the damage. So we've got the machine gun unit there is 5, and it's a 3. The 2 behind it, and I know it's a 3 for these 2 rifles. So let's start with the 2 rifles. Now you need to get lower than your rep. So the 2 rifles who are on 3 for their rep, what do we get? 1 is fine. 1, however, is killed. Sorry, I say killed. He's out of the fight, so he's knocked out. Machine gun team had 5 for their rep. 1 is killed, and the other is okay. And the 2 with the anti-tank, we've got 1 is well, they're both out of the fight, effectively not killed, but they haven't been lower than the rep. Now, obviously, that's not good for this unit. We'll have to have some morale tests in a moment, but I'm just going to fire with the submachine gun. It's going to be able to hit the NCO and the man behind him, so we'll start firing there. Now, I realise I've made an error in the first turn. What I should have done is I roll 2d6 to hit. I should add the rep to it. I didn't do it in turn 1, so I'll put a note that I've got an error with that. Never mind, we'll make mistakes in this one, and in this situation with a 5 added to both of those, it's 2 hits. Green is the NCO, and the NCO is out of the fight, as is the other rifleman whose rep is 3, and this unit is down to almost nothing. Now, as a result, this unit is almost completely out. We need to have a morale check immediately. With a rep of 5, the machine gunner is going to take up the lead here. So he's going to take command of these 3 men in total. We need to take a test. So it's a man down test. And 2 5s. Now, even though the unit gets 2 passes in terms of the reps, with a man down, with the half strength, they're going to duck back. Right, it's not the end of the game. We now have this gap here as the Germans have withdrawn, and we've got the British who've advanced there. But what we haven't looked at is the potential enemy forces, because even though some of them, the majority, are British markers, we haven't guaranteed that they are British. So, remembering that the rep is 4, we shall start over here and have a look and see how they go on. First test, rep of 4, and that's 1, so it goes 4 inches closer to the original British position. In doing so, it makes a line of sight quite obviously with the French unit here, so we need to roll and see, is there or are there any potential enemy forces. Rep of 4. Now that's just a 1. So with a 1, there might be something there. We don't know, so nothing appears. And for that unit moving forward, I'm going to do and roll 3d6, as it says in every subsequent case in that one. We also have the 3 markers down here, so let's roll for these. First of the 2 British markers, they just move 4 inches. Second, 4 inches also. The German, again, just 4 inches. So that's the end of turn 2. The British are advancing just to clear that area. It's very unlikely that the Germans will return at that end, as they've gone way below half in terms of their size. So we need to roll and see what happens for turn 3. You can operate. So 5, it means everybody can operate. There aren't any reinforcements, and it's the British to go first. The British secure the area as clear. We've got a line of sight here potentially with the that PEF, so we're going to roll straight away. Now, if I remember, I was rolling 3d6 for this one, removing the higher of the 2. Right, so we get rid of the 5, and then we've got a 2 and a 4. So yes, there is something there. So we need to roll 1 to 4, it's British. 5, it's German. 6, it's more Frenchmen. And it's British reinforcements. Just before I put out the British that appear, which I'll need to roll for, I'll just see if these units move closer again, if these act. So I've got 3 units, or 3 PEFs. Start with the first one. First one will move 8 inches. Second British marker will move 8 inches. German marker 4 inches. Now for that British appearance there, we need to roll to see whether it's actually a defensive position or a unit. So what do we get? 6. It's actually a defensive position. So what we found is I need to roll this plus 3, so it's 6. So what we get is 1 British section in a defensive position. Now what we've actually found is a British unit who have made use of some local cover, themselves in a defensive position. So this is who's holding this position here. Now what we need to do is have a look at the non-player. They ducked back last time, and we need to think, what are they going to actually do here? I think realistically is they would withdraw. We'll just have a check on the rules. And we roll 2d6. Remember, the rep is 5. So we've got 1. So with a 1, it'll fire if it could. We can't see any enemy due to the darkness, and so instead it will remain in place. So I'm going to say that this unit with an MG42 sits in a defensive position and hopes that the British effectively just move on by. That's the end of turn 3, so we're going to roll for turn 4. Turn 4, it means both the British and the PEF can operate. Now I'm going to say that there's an element of communication here. The British are holding a defensive position on this road, so as a result the unit here are going to follow their original requirement, which is to move down this road and to see if they can get towards their original objective. If that's clear, then naturally they'll make some kind of connection back to that unit there to subsequently support them. And the French, I don't know whether they're sharing bottles of wine or things like that, which is a reason to be cheerful. Then they'll stay with their new comrades for a few moments. Right, so if that's the case, let's move this British unit down the road, and as a consequence we'll see whether they link up with other British, or whether perhaps they might be German. Well, there's certainly a suitable distance to roll. Let's see if there is an insight test. And that's 2, so they've made contact. They can see that they are certainly there's something there, but is it British, German or Frenchman? I'll roll for the second unit to see whether we saw that. Yes, we've seen both, so I'm going to roll for both. Okay, so what have we connected? Right. Well, in reality, what we've got is that advancing almost next to each other are 2 units. One's British, but one's German. And just before we roll for how many men appear on this, we may as well roll for the German at the back there, because now that we know that within 12 inches we do have figures, we're going to need to see what the situation is with that one. So let's see whether we have an insight test for that German figure. 5 and a 4. That's just a 1, which means there might be something there. We don't know. We need to roll for 3 dice next time. Right, the green dice is British. Remember, 1 to 4 standard unit. 5 and 6 they'll be in a defensive position for either of those. So the British have moved and they found a German defensive position. Now I'm going to start with the Germans and say, what exactly is it that we found? We add 3 to this, so in total it's 11. And within 11 we found 2 enemy German squads in a defensive position. Well, who knows how we managed to get ourselves into this situation. You can make your own conclusions about when the Germans might have seen the British advancing on that side, these units moving together next to each other, maybe the other side of the road. The Germans were moving into their defensive position, didn't realise that actually the ones next to them weren't British, and obviously the other way around. So what I'm going to do is, so that I'm going to try and avoid having to roll lots of dice to say the rep of each individual element of each unit, NCOs, etc. I'm just going to say it's 4 for the British and for the Germans, and then to work out who might fire first, and indeed how we might engage with this advancing unit here. Again, for a bit of convenience, I'm going to say that I'm going to split this action. I'm going to say that this German unit here, the smaller unit, which actually has 6 men, I rolled off camera to work this out. This unit there are going to fire at the advancing British there. That's where they've seen them first of all. And first of all, we have to roll to see who has the initiative. So both have a rep of 4. So let's check that out. Red dice for the Germans. Remember, 1, 2, 3 is what we're looking for. And so we've got 1 for the Germans, but we've got 4 for the British. So the British would fire first. Now, the Bren team can hit up to 4 people. The men are all fairly close together with the Germans there, so I'm going to say that they can. Obviously they're in a defensive position. So we get 4 rolls. Remember, we roll a 2 dice for each, and I need to add the rep. So the rep is 4. So we get, we're adding 4. Now the black dice there is a miss, but the other 3 are all hits. Remember, the rep is 4 for these German units, and that means 1 is out of the fight, but the other 2 should be okay. Okay, so 1 is out of the fight, and the machine gun unit will duck back behind that fence. Now these 3 men can fire, but I need to take a will to fight test first, just before I do so. A rep of 4. That isn't so good. Right, with a naught, that means they need to leave the battlefield. That's not good news. So I'm going to say these 3 men rout. I'm not going to say that the machine gun does 2, it's going to stay where it is, but those 3 are going to disappear. Now, over here, I'm going to roll again. The rep for the 2 of them is 4, and effectively I'm going to say who is going to react first. Green dice are the British. Let's see what we look like. And again, I think that looks like the British can act first with 4 1, 2s or 3s. Now what I'm going to say is I'm going to say that the Bren carrier can fire, and the 2 riflemen to his left. Finally, the man in the red beret is going to throw a grenade. So a grenade will go in to where that machine gun team is. 2 rifles are going to fire, and the Bren is also going to fire, which can hit 4 men in total. So start off with the Bren. So we've got 3 hits, and with the green dice, remember we're adding 4, it makes 9. And with a 9, when you're in cover, it's outgunned because they're firing a Bren gun. The target will duck back. So 1 man ducks back there, the other 3 are hit. 3 men with a rep of 4, that means 2 killed and 1 out of the fight. This time we fire 2 rifles. Adding 4 again means that it'll be 11, both of those are hits. Outcome of that, 2 men are out of the fight. Finally, a grenade is thrown, but that's not exactly on target. Right, that's a miss with the grenade. So what we need to do is we need to roll for this German unit to see how it responds. If it stays, then it'll fire back at the British. So we'll test the will to fight. The unit has a rep of 4. Double 1, that's passed 2. So pass with 2, it's a man down test. Question is, if we're at half strength we would duck back, otherwise we'd carry on. And the decision really is whether we say that this is below half strength. We've had 5 casualties and 1 man ducked back, but I'm going to say the Germans carry on because we've got 11 and I've still got 6 men in total. So let's say that the Germans remain, and if they didn't, this game would certainly be over. So let's say that the Germans continue. They'll fire. Let's see what the outcome is for this particular unit, and then as we go into the next turn we'll see whether this potential enemy or friendly force is German. So this is the way we might be able to keep this game going. So let's see what the outcome of the firing is. Start with an MG42. It's going to fire, and I'm going to say the way you work it out is it has like a swathe, if you like, so it's like the sweep of the firing. The men are so close and they're also in 2 ranks. I'm going to say that we can hit all 6 of the men potentially, so let's see what happens. So 6 pairs of dice, adding 4. Well, I'm going to say that's a hit with all 6. With a rep of 4, we need lots of low numbers. And so that looks like 2 men are killed and 1 is out of the fight. Let's say 1, 2, 3. It's the Bren team. No, it's not. Over here I've got 2 rifles and 2 submachine guns. First submachine gun can hit 3 men. And remembering again, we add 4, so that looks like 3 hits. Second submachine gun. That looks like it's done exactly the same, so that's 6 hits. And we've got 2 rifles. Adding 4 to that as well, so we've got 8 hits in total. I'll do this twice. The first 4 men, 2 killed and 1 out of the fight. And then we've got 1 out of the fight. So I will remove these figures, but ultimately that's the outcome. We have this unit with 4 men left, so we need to take a will to fight test. Rep of 4. Well, these men are certainly less than half, so they will duck back. Now that is the end of the turn, and it's been quite devastating really. The British are advancing down the road here, so you've got a secured unit at the top, but that might well support. However, I'm going to suggest, just for convenience possibly, that they're keeping some kind of eye on what might be Germans at this end, so they might sort of disqualify each other out. Instead, this unit is advancing. These units have not necessarily knocked each other out, but the Germans are holding their position, but will need to roll about what the non-player does, what the actions are of the different units. We'll do that at the start of the new turn, and critically we'll see what this individual is right at the end there, and see whether this actually is an additional force, be it German, British or French. Right, so on to a new turn. What do we get here now? We get a 7. So what the 7 means, if you remember, we might potentially get reinforcements for the player, which in this case is the British. So we might get British reinforcements. It means both units units can be activated, but I'll say that the British go first, obviously, because they have the 4. So this is the reinforcements table. The investment level is 3, and I roll 1d6 and see what happens on the table. 7 in total, and a 7 means the rest of the platoon, effectively another 2 sections, will appear with this unit. Now, before I work out how many men then appear perhaps further down this road, so what might have happened, for example, is that it's other sections who've landed, other parachutists, and suddenly begin to appear from beyond these trees, etc., to bolster the unit to the full platoon. What I want to do is to have a look at this character here. Obviously we've got figures appeared, and I think we should test to see whether this individual actually is perhaps German reinforcements. Now we've got 3d6 to test. We get rid of the higher dice, but actually we've got 2 4s and a 1, so we know that something does appear now, and let's have a look and see who it is. 1 to 4, it's German. 5, it's British. 6, it's Frenchman. And in actual fact, it's more French. And so, in amongst all of the fighting, another group of French civilians appear from the village in celebration of the potential liberation that they think is taking place. So, I think as I were about to get significant reinforcements for the British coming along here, I think it's an appropriate point just to call it a day with this particular game. I think there's an opportunity there for the Germans to withdraw from this position back towards the farmhouse and see whether they can join their other units, and for the moment at least the British can continue to advance along this road and to their original objective, and see how things will begin to develop on June 6th, 1944. So it just leaves me to say thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the game, enjoyed the variety I've tried to add into the game here with the non-player elements of that, and then you know, the thought of being a number of potential forces, German, British and indeed French civilians. Thanks once again to the guys at Little Wars TV. I hope this has been a good new game of nuts, a variety way of playing, and I hope if you've got any thoughts or ideas, you might want to put some suggestions either on the YouTube to this video, or feel free to join one of a number of Facebook groups. One is Nuts, the Facebook group there, and also Wargaming World, if you want to join Wargaming World and add your thoughts and ideas there. So just finally, thanks once again for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the game, and we'll see you again soon.